Do you want to get out of the world and into the Word? Do you want to take your first steps to evangelizing God, but you don't know where to start? The Bible Study for Sinners, a place where all are welcome regardless of your past and how much you know about the Bible. Narrated by two, but welcome to all. Join us each Bible study and share your story as it relates to the readings and show how God has transformed your life. We're looking forward to seeing you all each week.
All right, and we're back with another episode of the Bible Study for Sinners. Today we're going to be talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan, which is a parable based on the theme of mercy and compassion. Martin, how you doing?
I'm doing good. As you can hear from where you are, probably like 5 miles away, it seems a little biblical today with this sunshine and thunder.
I know, man. It's kind of like someone's trying to ruin our recording, dude.
Ruin our recording or give us a little motivational pep talk for background music. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it'll really set the theme, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, before we begin, you have anything you'd like to say? Any valuable input? Any thoughts?
I think this is a great parable for today, considering how many times us as Christians are trying to find the line in which we know when to help people. And it's one of the hardest things about being a Christian is loving your neighbor as yourself. So at what point does Jesus tell us to love our neighbor to the point we know we're doing the will of God?
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to describe it is through the Good Samaritan, right?
Yes, sir. And I feel it is important to say, if the audio is a little weird today, it is probably because of the storm. And you may hear the thunder in the background, but once I learn how to use this software appropriately, we'll probably be able to turn that down. But as of right now, technology's hard, man. Okay.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
Yeah, we will get there. Maybe. Who knows? All right, man. So, as you know, I kind of like to start off, or, well, rather, we can try starting off with a little background. I know with the previous ones, it's kind of hard to get a lot of background information. The vast majority of what I've pulled from is I'm still not sure how you pronounce it, but I think it's Logos program or application. And then I use my ESV study Bible and then my MacArthur study Bible. I kind of pull from all three of those sources. But specifically in Logos, I use I think it's called the Faith Study Bible. I just don't want anybody thinking that I think I'm coming up with all of this on my own. So let us.
There's a lot to it. So
Yeah.
I can see the research that you put into it. So
yeah. Well, this one specifically, right?
Right. We're all learning too. So it's awesome to add this extra context to the passage, because if you try to take some of these parables and apply them right now,
Mm-hmm.
you're not a first century Jewish person, so they're
Right.
probably not going to land as hard as they did back then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the cool things, and this is kind of unrelated, but because we did the sower, I believe, right? Just the shock value that Jesus uses in some of his parables, which you will see in this one because of the Samaritan Israelite relationship. It's kind of, he uses that a lot, I think, in my opinion, to grab these people's attention. And I think it works really well because it says as much throughout the readings. So, did you have anything to add? I don't want to keep cutting you off. We talked about this last time.
Nope, that was a great segue into what we're doing.
Okay.
To get it.
All right, man. So a little background information. Of course, I said the theme was mercy and compassion. So we can probably deduce that this man who's going down from Jerusalem to Jericho is a Jewish man. So one of the characters involved is a Levite, which is from the tribe of Levi. And they held many roles in the temple, so they were very familiar with the laws. And me hitting on that point will make sense in a second. The priests, because a priest walks by, he is also very intimately familiar with the laws. In the law, as far as I can discern from the readings, at this time required people to stop and help their brethren, even their enemies. So, to understand why they may be enemies, Samaritans were a mix of Israelite and foreigners, so they had the kind of Gentile aspect to them. So they weren't accepted by Jewish communities. In fact, they were hated by Jewish people for ethnic and religious reasons. So it wasn't just the Gentile aspect, it was the way they worshiped as well. But it's important to note that it was a mutual hatred. It wasn't just one-sided, right? I mean, the Jewish people even went so far as to refer to the name of Samaritan as, well, they made it synonymous with heretic and devil. Like, that's how deep this hatred ran. And it even dates back to like the 6th century BC. So, got a little bit more here. Just so for religious context, they did both worship Yahweh. They used the scripture that consisted of the Pentateuch, I think is how you say it, which is the first 5 books of the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And then the difference here is the Samaritans worshipped on Mount, and I always mispronounce this, I think it's Gerizim or Gerizim, instead of Jerusalem, which was where the Jews worshipped. And then finally, before we get into the readings, it's important to understand that Jewish legal experts were always trying to prioritize the laws by classifying them under kind of like a weight system, right? Like which ones were lighter and carried lighter kind of sentences, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, and which were more weighty, right? So in knowing that, this law expert that the parable references, he's probably not trying to learn anything from Jesus, right? He's just trying to walk him into a trap, as everybody seems to be doing, so that they can discredit him and his teachings. And to do that, he asks what he must do to inherit eternal life, right? And then he follows that up with what Jesus's definition of a neighbor was. And then we'll see how that kind of plays out once we get into the reading. Anything to add before we start?
Yeah, the legalistic aspect, like we're going to get into a separate reading later that I brought up with you about how people are trying to use the legalistic sin, or like, how far can I go without having to go further? So a lawyer would, of course, like to do the bare minimum and still, pass the test pretty much,
Right.
but also will try and do entrap.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a good
But
point.
we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So we will begin. I'm going to read from the NIV version. I honestly don't know why. It's just, I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just the one I picked. But anyways, so we're going to start with, it's in Luke 10, verses 25 through 37. And I'm going to have those up on the screen for anybody who's watching. All right. So, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus responded, "What is written in the law?" He replied, "How do you read it?" So he answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." So Jesus says, "You have answered correctly." Well, Jesus replied, "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." All right.
Beautiful. It's hard
Isn't it?
to explain off the top of your head like the perfect representation of being a good neighbor.
Yeah, man, it's very interesting that the 2 people that you would expect that are kind of maybe obligated isn't the right word, but according to the law, obligated to stop and help him, like actually crossed the road to be further away from him after seeing what had happened. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And these would have been the same people that Jesus probably would have referred over and over again to as hypocrites, right?
Yes, exactly.
So these are the ones that would mouth confessors, but not action doers, or probably a better way of wording that.
Right. And this this was the point I was trying to make with the jarring people, right? Because these people detested the Samaritans, and Jesus uses the Samaritan as the good guy, and the priest and the Levite were the bad guys in this scenario.
And I know this parable is meant for like first century Jews.
Mm-hmm.
So the context might be a little difficult to understand. So I used, for example, like ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
and I asked for the parable, um, for this parable that was meant for first century Jews to be reconstructed for a more modern audience, and just to get a better idea of like the shock value that Jesus is going for. If
Mm-hmm.
that's okay with you, I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
read what it told me.
Please do. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is the Good Samaritan, but 2025. So a guy's driving home late from work, and his car breaks down in a sketchy part of the town. Before he can call AAA, a couple of guys jump him, take his phone, wallet, backpack, and beat him so bad he can barely move. They leave him lying on the sidewalk, bleeding in the dark. The first person who comes along is a big name pastor from a mega church across town. He slows down and sees the guy, but thinks, man, this could be dangerous. I've got my own problems, and he drives off. Next up, a popular social media activist, always posting about kindness and equality. She's taking one look, decides someone else will handle it, I'm not getting involved, and walks away. Then here's the twist: someone from a group that this guy really wouldn't have liked. If they have met before, um, we've taken a moment of polemic. For example, political opinions would have been opposite. The kind of person that people block each other online, social media. He's driving through and sees the guy, and instead of ignoring him, he pulls over. He gets out, checks if the guy is breathing, um, rips up his own hoodie and makes a bandage and gives it to him, gives him water from the bottle. Then he calls an Uber ride for him to go to the ER, pays the bill out of his own pocket, and tells the nurse whatever else he needs, send me the invoice. Jesus looks at the crowd and says, so out of these three, who was the real neighbor? And everybody obviously answered the one who actually helped.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jesus said, be like that. So if you can take the modern look of the first century Jew look, it gives you a broader perspective, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah. We got a lot of that going on these days, huh? Like the
Exactly.
clashing over whatever, you know, whatever's big to argue about now. That story, much like this one, the parable, it's just like this is how far we have to take the depths of our compassion and mercy on everyone, right? Friend,
Mm-hmm.
enemy, whatever. Like he calls on us to do that, to treat everybody equally, right? To show compassion for everybody equally, which is difficult, man. It's very, very difficult. And it's
Exactly.
we talked about it in a previous video, I think, how hard it is to love thy neighbor when they just keep doing the same things over and over.
Yeah, and just finding that line too, like a great example was there was this old television evangelist. He passed away long since ago,
Mm-hmm.
Archbishop Sheen. And the way he described it was perfect. He says, Jesus says to love your neighbor. He didn't say you had to like him.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Yeah.
just like, there's things that I don't like about myself, but it doesn't mean in a time of need, I'm not going to help you. For example, if I'm a lifeguard and I see somebody I despise and I actually really, really don't like drowning,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna save you because that's Jesus what he's saying. Like, even though I don't like you, I still love you for being, a person or a child of God as I would love myself. And if I was
Mm-hmm.
drowning, I would love if somebody come save me.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because
and that's kind of the extent of it. Yeah.
we're
Sorry,
all
go on.
we're all created in His image, dude. So you got to think you're doing a huge disservice to the Lord if you're not helping these people. But it's very difficult, you know. And I kind of on and off topic, well, on topic rather. I think I never would have gotten this right. So the whole parable is to make this lawyer, for lack of a better term, or to provoke him into thinking about what it means to be a neighbor, not who you should consider one, right? That's I never would have drawn that conclusion because maybe I just haven't read it enough. But he was just asking the wrong questions, man. And I think it was still probably lost on him after this interaction. You know what I mean?
Right. When he's like, who is my neighbor then? Like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I would see the Jews, if my fellow, like, you know, um, first century Jews as my neighbors, but I wouldn't see these people that are outside my social class or outside my group as being my neighbors, right?
Right. Yeah.
But Jesus is like, nope.
Right. No, it's just that would be very easy to do, especially if you had such a deep seated hatred like they appeared to have for the Samaritans. It'd be hard to wrestle with, man, especially in that time when, you know, it was written in the Old Testament that they were the chosen people. Um,
Yeah, and another aspect to think of too, like if a Samaritan helped a first century Jew and then they woke up and saw them and then they freaked out and started yelling at them for like, why are you touching me with unclean hands? Get away from me. Even
mm-hmm.
though they paid, they wouldn't even consider the hospitality. They would just look at like, I'm unclean now or something like that. That's
Right.
another point he was driving at too. Like,
Yeah.
even though that this person hates you
Mm-hmm.
and is probably gonna scald you when they come to,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that you're still going out of your way to help them
Yeah.
says more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? I just thought about this because I was reading Mark 6, and I couldn't tell you what verse it was, but it was where Jesus, I think it was the first couple verses, when Jesus sends out the disciples two by two, but he tells them not to take anything, right? So one of the things was the whole reason he did that is because they needed to have faith in God to provide provisions for them. But also during that time, it was expected that visitors would be helped and just be provided for, because if not, they would die, right? So while it doesn't like really maybe apply 100% to this, it's still kind of the same thing, right? He would have been a visitor eventually, um, regardless of whether you like him or not. Whether or not that's relative now that I think about it, I don't know. But I just thought that was interesting that I read it today.
Right, right, exactly. Too, like at the same point of that too. When he sent them out two by two, he also said, "Don't stop and talk to anybody." Pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So he had everything set out. Him being God, he had everything set out in his own time.
Mm-hmm.
So even when he said, "Don't stop and greet anybody," because he knew even in Jewish culture, it would have slowed them way down.
Yeah.
He's just like, no, you got to go out and do this at a time. Like he had everything all planned out pretty much. So everything is also at the time in which he wants it done.
Mm-hmm.
So even walking down the streets, like, do not even, say anything to anybody. Just go.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, don't think, just go.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was an interesting fact, the two by two thing too, because it would have took a lot more to preach to Gentiles or anything at the time. And maybe Jesus is like, it's not the time either.
Yeah.
And it would have just ended badly or caused more conflict.
Oh
So
yeah.
he had everything planned out. And I think he chose good by waiting to send Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, but also the law at that time, you needed two people to bear witness to a testimony to like what's the word I'm looking here for? To kind of corroborate it. So they think that the two by two suggests that that is the case, right? So you have two people confirming their testimonies and the good works of Jesus, which is very interesting. But
Exactly.
one thing I did forget to mention is while the parables are all um, stories, right? They're not real. This one in particular, there is an actual area that he's referring to that's like super rocky. So what's really cool to me is throughout the Bible, it will say going up to Jerusalem or down to Jericho rather, because I think it was Jerusalem that was up high. I could be getting them switched, but I'm fairly confident it was Jerusalem that was up on kind of like a hill. So even those minor details really I find cool, but nevertheless, it was very common in this area because I think it was built by King Herod to for merchants to travel on to get to the cities easier. But that whole area was like rocky and it had a lot of hiding spots. So there were, according to what I read, there were a lot of robberies and killings in this area. And this place even still exists now. Like you can go there and see where these people could have hid and jumped people. And so this, while it is a story, I'm sure it actually happened on several occasions. Maybe not a Samaritan stopping to help him, but just the historicity of it, right? Like these things definitely did happen in that area in that time. You know what I mean?
Right. And he also, always used references of the time and area to drive in points. For example, calling Guyana hell,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much because that was pretty much a physical representation of what they would have saw as hell. People throwing people into like a burn pit or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting because a lot of times those are the weeping and gnashing of teeth actually represents like places outside the city, if I'm not mistaken. In at least I think two instances, it references somewhere outside the city where bad things happened, or like garbage, like areas, that kind of thing. But anyways, I know I've been talking a lot, but there's one thing that I thought was cool, and forgive me, this will be a repeat of the other video, but this comes from the evangelical commentary on the Bible. I just thought this was it was interesting. Do this and you will live. It is speculated that Jesus was speaking hypothetically here, as this contradicts salvation by faith. This is not accurate because true faith manifests itself in works. I just thought that was a very interesting comment there. Do with that information what you will, but
Right. And like I was telling you, there's like another thing that I just randomly stumbled across this week that I wanted to read about it, if that's all right. Because it was so random because I was just sitting to wait to go to church and I was looking for a pamphlet and then like my book fell open to this page about the Good Samaritan. I'm like,
mm,
oh, maybe I should bring this up then.
yeah, please.
Okay, forgive me for my slow reading, but so this is for the month of July and August. So the Catholic Church gives you out these like books of the readings that are going to be each day, and this was like a meditation.
Mm-hmm,
So this is actually for July 13th,
mm-hmm,
form of meditation by reflecting on this. So what it says, just turn this up a little bit. When we read when we read Jesus' parable of the Good Samaritan, we might overlook the seemingly innocent question from the scribe. But Luke tells us that this man asked the question because he wished to be justified himself. Because he wished to justify himself. When he did not have to love, to whom he did not have to love, whom could he ignore? Was there anyone he could dismiss, or who he didn't have to claim on his compassion? Essentially, he wanted to know how far he could go and still be justified. In response, Jesus told the parable that featured one character this scribe would have found the most difficult to love, a Samaritan. Samaritans were descendants of the people of Assyrian, or the Assyrians
mm-hmm.
fought to the intermarry with the Israelites after the devastating war. They worshiped the Lord, but they didn't so according to their version of the law. That scribes like the man in today's gospel rejected. They had even built their own temple instead of worshiping in the temple of Jerusalem. Yet, despite this history, Jesus presents two who failed miserably while a Samaritan shows extravagant love. It's the Samaritan whom Jesus told the scribes to love as his neighbor. And if he were to love the Samaritan, then he had to love everyone. No one was off limits. Everyone was his neighbor. Why do you think Jesus might why do you think Jesus might feature if he were to tell you this parable? Who do you have the hardest time accepting or loving? The parable, the person is your neighbor. Every person whom God created has a claim on you. Even the one who looks and thinks and acts different than you, even the one who you find hard to love, even the one you consider enemies, especially them. If this sounds too hard, know that Jesus is at your side. He wants to help you because more loving and more kind and more forgiving towards everyone. So ask him, the one who loved his enemies perfectly, to soften your heart and move you to love just as he does.
Mm,
And that's the meditation for that. So
boy.
if you can't love your enemies, ask Jesus to help you.
Boy, have I ever prayed and meditated on that, dude.
Hmm.
It's worked to varying degrees. I think I can make the distinction between loving and liking. Um, I don't want anything bad to happen to people, but that doesn't mean that um, I'm in love with the way they act or do things or hurt other people. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You can love the person, but you can hate the sins that they're doing.
Yeah, which is also a hard one, man. It really is. Mm, I don't want to get too specific or anything, but it's just like, he calls us to forgive, like, what is it, 7 times and then 70, or 70 times and then seven? But
Hmm.
if the person keeps doing the same thing over and over, at what point does the forgiveness end? According to Jesus, it doesn't, right? But it's kind of like, man. And I guess you kind of see that in the disciples, right? They kept doubting, kept raising questions and stuff like that. And he's just like, come on, guys. Like, you're witnessing this stuff firsthand and still you doubt, kind of thing. But he kept forgiving them for their lack of faith. So I guess we have to do the same, huh? Regardless of the circumstances. Theirs was literally a war of souls. So,
Right. And I always keep the same thought in my head that other people's actions don't weigh on my soul unless I respond to their actions.
mm, I can use that.
So if you if you sin in front of me, it's not going to cause me to sin
Mm-hmm.
unless I act upon that. Like if you do something that causes me anger, then I'm responding to you
Mm-hmm.
through an act of sin.
Mm,
Kind of get that?
mm-hmm. That's my first response is anger. That's why right now I would make a terrible debater, I think, just because I don't know that I could keep my emotions out of it because people start talking over you and yelling at you. So it's very hard. Like, the people that can do that are truly saints. And I just watched a couple videos earlier today about people talking to like atheists and things like that. And and the other side just talks over you and yells at you and this, that, and the other. And these guys are all cool as a cucumber, man. They don't raise their voices. They don't get upset. I don't know that I would share that same level of composure.
I mean, there's ways of practice, which is probably not the best thing that I do. But for example, people are getting angry when I say this. If I drive down the street and I'm going the speed limit and somebody's rushing and they're right behind me,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's their problem.
Yeah.
I don't get angry about it. I just keep going slow. And if they get like if they're like swerving back and forth, getting angry, I'm like, it sounds like you're angry,
Yeah.
but I'm following the law, so you can get
Right.
as angry as you want, and I'm just gonna stay cool as a cucumber because nothing of this bothers me. But a lot of people respond to that and get angry, like, why is this person right behind me? Blah blah
Mm-hmm.
blah. And I just learned to like, you know what? It's not my problem. If they want to go around, they'll wait till a passing zone. But I'm not going to speed up because they want me to speed up. I'm not going to break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to sin because you're pushing me to sin like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Did you
Good
hit?
analogy. I just thought of
Yeah, that was
that.
good. Because you just described me. I feel
I
attacked.
described my old self. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I get so upset when people tailgate, man, because it's so dangerous. It's like, what do you even do? Why are you putting us both in the situation where we could both get hurt? You know what I mean?
Hmm. And like, I've never, well, I mean, I did almost call into work one time just to tell my boss I was going to be in late because I was driving extra slow because somebody was getting angry. Like, sounds like a you problem, but um, if it really causes you that much anger because somebody's going the speed limit, then it sounds like a you problem.
Yeah. Leave your house earlier, huh? What do you think about that?
Hmm.
Take take a little bit of accountability of why you're in this situation. Well, hey, I say that and I get upset when I'm running late and people are driving. The thing that gets me is driving under the speed limit because sometimes it'll be 5 to 10 kilometers under the speed limit. I'm like, dude, if you can't handle driving the speed limit, maybe you shouldn't be driving anymore. And you can almost guess what kind of person it is when when they're driving so far under the speed limit. It's typically a very old person who probably has no business driving, but here we are. That is Japan.
Yeah, that's caused a lot of accidents too. When there's a lot of elderly population driving too slow and younger population driving too fast, and they just kind of meet in the middle and crash, which I
Yeah.
see all the time on the highway.
I know. It seems like every time we get on the Chuo or whatever, which is the kind of the expressway. Well, would you? It would be an interstate, right? Because it runs in between.
Yeah, it's a pay toll road, but it's still technically an
Is it an interstate? Would you classify it as an
inner
interstate?
inner prefecture, I guess.
Yeah. So if we were drawing comparisons, I think it would be the equivalent of an interstate, but I'm not 100% sure of that. But yeah, dude, it seems like every time we drive on that thing, me and my family, there's a wreck, and dude, it just slows it down like 30 to 45 minutes of traffic. It's crazy, but the younger people drive like madmen on that thing, dude. The speed limit's 80, and I'll have people passing me, probably doing 60 kilometers over that.
Yeah, and the roads really aren't designed for like breakdowns either, because they're like small, narrow 2-lane roads each or 4-lane roads. But
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and like leaning back on, trying to be a good person, but trying to be a selfless person in a selfish world
Mm-hmm.
and still trying to hold your emotions back. Like I get that we do these small acts that you're just trying to be nice, but some people don't respond the way you want them to.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, yesterday I was going somewhere and I held the door open for somebody coming in. And instead of saying something, they just like chested up and walked past me. I'm just like, okay, the old me would have been in rage right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm just gonna let that go. And I walked away.
Dude,
I'm like,
that one gets me so much on base. It happens all the time. And like you, I used to, just yell out "you're welcome" or something like that. But now I'm just like, try to remember that maybe they're having a bad day or something.
the irony was like it was a church too. So I was like leaving church on the doors. I was like, okay, bye, have a good day. God
Really?
bless. But like it
Ooh.
was like me leaving my church service for like another church service coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Dang, dude.
like a different denomination. It was
That
like that's fine. Like,
that feels like the one place that shouldn't happen. That's crazy. And you ask why I don't want to go to church on base because I feel like that's probably a very common occurrence. Not that in particular, but like I see a lot of these people, and I really did appreciate you saying you would go with me the other day. But a lot of these people I see acting not like Christians, and then to go to church with them, it just being on base that much when I spend the vast majority of my life on that base, it's just like I think I'll pass. So I would rather explore options off base, which I'm looking into. But anyways, I don't know what that has to do with. Well, not no, that does tie into loving your neighbor because we have to love these people even though they act outside of the. Um,
yeah, and that kind of leads into what I was saying too, like
right.
how they were also Jewish, but they worship a different way at different temples and stuff like that, but they still like looked at them. How often do we see that now between groups of Christianity in which everybody's just trash talking each other
Yeah.
and looking down on them. And that's an issue for me.
Yeah. Well, dude, it almost seems like you can't even have a healthy discussion anymore because it's just a battle of wills, essentially. Who can talk louder and who can uh, get you first. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, that's not what it's all about. But good luck convincing some of these people of that. Get some clicks, though. Isn't that neat? Which maybe that's what they're going for, dude. Who knows? That's just not healthy or conducive to changing someone's mind. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And to segue into like being in Japan, like I asked my wife what they thought of the culture currently of like helping people because a lot of times before, like Japanese are like extremely helpful
Mm.
a lot of times,
Yeah.
but depending on the situation,
Mm-hmm.
if you're like lost, they'll help you
Oh yeah.
if you ask them first.
Mm-hmm.
But if the opposite is what she told me is when you go to ask somebody if they need help. That's when they put their guard up, she told me. Because there's so many people scamming people out where they come to you like, "Do you need help with something?" And then they try and like scam you out of money. And at
Really?
first I didn't believe her. Yeah. At first I didn't believe her until I started reflecting on myself. I was like, that happened to me. I've been in the train station where somebody comes to me and like, "Hey, do you need help getting a ticket?" And I'm like, "Oh, sure, thanks." I'm like, "Now give me money." Like, oh, you weren't being nice. You were just trying to get money from me. Like,
Really? That's
that's
happened to
happened to
you?
me many times. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So many
Really?
times.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Maybe it's my unapproachable uh, face that I wear when I'm out in public. But nobody's ever done that to me. That's crazy, man. I've never heard of
Yeah.
that.
Look, if you, maybe that's when I live in a different part of Japan, but like it was, if you look like you're struggling, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody just come up like, "Hey, do you need help?" And it's like, "Oh, yeah, thanks." And it's like, "Now give me $5 for my service, or give me like like 1,000 yen for my service." Like,
Man,
oh.
that's awful, dude. Ugh.
Do you have any experiences on your own, like trying to help or not helping because you're worried about something or
Funny you should ask. Because I do. Yeah. Um, there was one night I went to visit a friend in a different prefecture, and we went out drinking. This was probably 10 years ago, if not more, maybe 11. But yeah, we went out and there was this. It was like I don't know, maybe 12 a.m. or 1 a.m. And there was this guy. He was leaning up against a vending machine, and he was kind of slumped over, right? So we didn't know if he was okay or whatever. So my buddy kind of taps him on the shoulder to me. He's fluent in Japanese. It's a high school friend that I grew up with, and he taps the guy on the shoulder and asks if he's okay. And the guy gets up and he starts like pushing my friend. Now I don't know if this is just me inserting things into my memory because it's all memories of memories or whatever. But I think he took a swing at him. But yeah, I mean he was drunk and we did try to help, but like that was his reaction. So I kind of understand why you wouldn't want to help people in that situation. But a lot of times you'll see people just like walking past drunk people and taking pictures when they're all passed out all over the side of the road because that happens often here. But on the flip side of that, people do like buy bottles of water and leave them next to the person so that when they wake up, they can have water to drink. So it's not all the time, but it does happen. So yeah, that kind of scared me away from wanting to help people for a long time because I didn't want to get swung on because I know how I would react, and it would just be two drunk people fighting it at that point, you know.
completely understand. That's the old me too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Can I help? Okay, looks like we're about to throw hands.
And that was back when I couldn't fight, so I probably would have got worked, man. Who knows, you know? I'm not saying I can't now, but I'm a little older and wiser now. But
Aren't we all?
yeah, I mean, that's the whole reason I got into kickboxing because I couldn't control my temper. And it helped to varying degrees, but also armed with the knowledge I was kind of still looking to get into a scrap, you know what I mean? Just to, because I had something to prove. Now I couldn't care less. Like, that's not, I'll probably just run away, which is what every halfway decent martial artist will say, because it's just not worth it. Especially here, man. You and I would be thrown in jail rather quickly, and probably not get to see our loved ones for a while. So
Deported, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Uh,
it's an issue of pride when it comes down to it, you know. And my pride ruled me for a very, very long time, and still does in a lot of instances, which you've seen firsthand. So
no worries. Like I'm one of those like I realize my own anger and my own outbursts
mm-hmm.
have no positive repercussions.
Yeah.
So like when I do for example like jujitsu or something, I'm holding back like crazy because I'm like if I know if I go way too hard in the wrong direction or if I do something way too fast,
Mm-hmm.
I'm either gonna hurt myself or hurt somebody else. It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, probably yourself first, right? At least I
Yeah.
would.
I know there are people that are completely like high intense and they're always hurting themselves and it's like just I just want to learn the technique and I want to like practice, but
Yeah, we've rolled with him.
yeah, we've with a few people like that.
Oh
But
man, that's funny, dude.
yeah, like I've dislocated my shoulder a few times, but that's my own fault because that thing just needs to be like I need to have surgery on that anyways.
So
But
get
getting off
surgery.
topic, I
Get
need to
surgery.
get the people involved who are listening. Like if you have any personal experience of trying to be a good neighbor or struggling to be a good neighbor or being in a place where people aren't going to accept if you are a good neighbor. Um, Love to hear from that because we are all sinners and struggling to be perfect in the ways of the Lord.
Mm-hmm. And I feel we have to say this every time, just so people can't use our words against us. We use Japan as a reference point because we've both been here, what, 10 plus years? So, like,
Yeah,
this,
over 10 years.
yeah, this is quite literally what we've known for a vast majority of our lives. It's not because we want to pick on Japanese people or tear down people's idea of what Japan and Japanese people are. It's just, well, and to be fair, I live in kind of a rural area, so you kind of get a different breed of Japanese person. Um, and in Tokyo in general, they're a little more cold, from what I understand. So that's kind of in line with maybe not stopping to help someone as much because you don't know what people are capable of. And then maybe it's the whole stigma, right? The whole they're worried about being judged for helping a homeless person or someone who's drunk, something like that. You know what I mean? But the opposite of that does happen. I see people helping people all the time. So it's not that we're attacking the idea of Japan. It's just been home for so long. It's the only thing I'm comfortable referencing at this point.
I would feel more uncomfortable referencing America right now, how long it's been since I've been there.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I I think I've been home twice since 2011, maybe. Yeah, two or three times
Wow.
max. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been home since 2017. It's been a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the last time I went home was 2019. So you've actually been here, or I mean, you haven't been back in what, 8 years? That's crazy to think, man.
Yeah. I guess the perk of working on a military base is like you get the sense of being in America
Mm-hmm.
and then you get to come off the sense of being in Japan. So like you don't have that longing to go back to America for just getting back into like the culture and the food and stuff like that because everything's available to you here.
Right. And it puts us in a unique position because we're not tethered to the Japanese workforce and their societal rules and things like that. Does that make sense? That's a very poor way of
Mhm.
phrasing that, but we get the best of both worlds, essentially, I think is the point I'm trying to make. But
Yeah, it's got its the benefits and negatives. Like I know we're getting off talking about Japan, but at the same time, like um, for example, if you're not working in Japan, you're not paying taxes.
mm-hmm,
And for like my wife and I are trying to get a house, which is a nightmare of a process because
mm-hmm,
I don't count as a person because I'm technically not a Japanese citizen
mm-hmm.
because I'm here contracted to the America. So
Yeah, right.
so she's pretty much got to be everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, they carry a lot of the burden too, like the translation stuff. I know you can speak Japanese way better than I can, but like it, I could see it being a burden on them as well for all the things that they have to do that we can't. It's just always been kind of goofy what Japan chooses to recognize your um, bank account as versus what it doesn't, right? So like for the daycare here, they use my pay slips and stuff too. But if we were to get a loan like you guys, they wouldn't even look at me, right? As you mentioned. So it's very odd what they choose to, or what scenarios they kind of choose to treat you as a Japanese citizen in, if that makes sense. And the schools,
Exactly.
yeah, the schools and the daycare are the biggest ones, I think. Then my wife actually, for her taxes, has to use my stuff as well for whatever reason. And it used to make me really mad, but now it doesn't because, it wouldn't help us with a loan. So I don't think it's fair that they use it, but that's going down a whole other rabbit hole. But
So even though we have to deal with all of this, we still try to be good Samaritans.
heavy emphasis on
There,
try.
yeah, tied it back in. There we go.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep. And I think that's it. So we'll see you later.
yeah, okay. Uh, that's great. I
Yeah.
mean, like, it's interesting topic comparing like um, Japan societal rules mixed into being a foreigner, because of course there's still a lot of that stigma
Hmm.
of you're a foreigner, so you're not going to understand culture and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, and there are people, even though they don't feel comfortable helping you, they will help you
Hmm.
even if they can't speak English.
Yeah.
And that's a good example of being a good person to a foreigner,
Hmm.
especially when you don't know if they see the same views as you.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
I mean, one redeeming story, I guess I could tell real quick since it seems like we're all always taking shots. But my daughter had a heat stroke the other day and she fell and smacked her head on the pavement. Luckily, she had her helmet on. But so my wife went to get help from a local pharmacy and they gave my daughter a bunch of free like hydration solutions and they set her up kind of a little bed out of towels and stuff like that and they didn't charge her anything and they even went to a clinic next door and grabbed a doctor to come look at her. Again, didn't charge her anything. They just helped and recommended that she go to the hospital, so they even called an ambulance for her to get her there. So it's just stuff like that, they are, especially I've noticed when children are involved, everyone kind of takes up that Good Samaritan mantle, at least here. You know what I mean? I've noticed that if a kid is involved, there's usually not the issue of do I help or do I not. It's always help.
exactly. And like, even my wife surprises me sometimes because, like, I think I was telling you one time we were driving, and then this old lady like literally gets hit by a car,
Hmm.
and then without even realizing, my wife jumps out of the car ready to go help the lady. I was like, oh, I didn't even know what was going on. She's like, oh, she's got hit by a car, and she jumps out of the car to go like run and help this lady. I'm like, okay. So of course I came and parked my car, and since I was the bigger emphasis
Stronger
on the
man, bigger, stronger
bigger,
man.
I would say strong, I would say fatter, but I was like holding this old lady up for like 30 minutes to 45 minutes till the ambulance finally got there. It's like,
It took that long.
it depends. Like, if
That's
traffic,
wild.
it was like a Sunday, so,
Oh yeah, so
and
traffic was
Sundays in
awful.
Japan are pretty congested.
Right. Oh yeah, dude, that's crazy. See, you're
Yeah.
rubbing off on her, dude.
But the other way around. Yeah, she's always willing to help somebody, but like, she'll complain about it later. She didn't complain about that, but it's mainly just me.
See?
I love her to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah. No, it sounds like it. Yeah. No, I'm totally kidding. No, I mean, yeah. Maybe in the future we'll try to sprinkle more good stories in so it doesn't feel like we're bashing. I just know that people are going to pick it apart, especially if they don't like the overarching message, right? Like, oh, you just take shots at Japan your entire video. Not the case. Just what we know.
Yeah, if I was in America, I'd probably be having better references there. It's kind of like Jesus using the parable of the Good Samaritan is relating to the local culture of where
Mm-hmm.
he is, and we're using Japan because it's the local culture where
Mm-hmm.
we are.
Well, also religions, right? Buddhism is here. There is some Christianity, which I think is actually growing, if the internet is to be believed. Um, but they have, so you can use it in that way too. I mean, you go to the States, you have Islam, different variations of Protestant, you have Catholicism, you have all this, that, and the other. So it's very relevant. I mean, it would be very easy for a Christian not to help someone that's Islamic or vice versa. You know what I mean? Not that that happens. I'm just saying it's, if you want to put it in that context as well, like we could assign that sort of scenario to it, you know?
Exactly. And I know being in, I'm not going to go off this topic. I was about to go off the rails on something because I was watching the whole. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that right now.
No, now you have to.
uh, now, just you can cut this out if you want to, but like
Okay.
I was binge watching like this Korean thing that popped up on Netflix this week, and it's pretty much like all these people using Christianity
Mm-hmm.
as a means to create cults in Korea.
Mm.
And like this one guy was like pretty much assaulting women, and like the other one was like pretty much R wording children using Christianity as like the basis of their um, cult,
Wow.
and that disgusts me. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, that's relevant, and then it goes back to holding our God accountable for the actions of humans, right? That's simply not fair. They know, and they're using their free will to do these heinous things. But I've heard of that as well. There's a lot of scams and stuff that involve religion, but and I never understood how you got caught up in that, because even when I wasn't practicing Christianity, I I don't think I would have gotten wrapped up on that in that. And now I know enough that I still would not get wrapped up in that. So I don't know how you can think that this person's been, and I mean they say it, right? There will be many false prophets who come, but it's very clear in the Bible that these people will like be proclaiming that they got some revelation, right? And that you should follow them because they've
hmm
been given some God-given grace to understand something that we other mere mortals cannot, right? But I just find it fascinating that people get trapped in that kind of thing.
exactly. And the funny thing was like we were watching it last night, and like the whole concept was like this guy is supposed to be the second coming of Christ or whatever, and he's
Yeah.
like assaulting women. But at the same time, like as soon as like my wife's like, okay, I want to go to bed, so I switched over to The Chosen, and it was the exact scene where it's just like many people will come in my name, many false people will come in my name, and they will do like heinous things. And I was like, see, he warned about this.
That's crazy, dude.
I'm like, there's
Dang.
no coincidence that this happened at the same time. Like, see, do you see him warning about this?
That's crazy, dude. What did she say? Was she impressed?
No, she was just being. She's like, okay, I'm gonna go to bed. I'm like, okay, thanks for paying attention though. But
Well,
I'm like, I wanted like watch it again.
that beautiful moment was lost on her, huh? Yeah,
She
they'll get
watched
there.
it. She processed the information.
They'll they'll get there, you know. Some just take a little longer than others.
hmm hmm
Mm. But yeah, man, I think that's relevant. We're gonna leave that in because that's crazy. I've noticed a lot of that stuff as well. But and I'm sure they, like the elderly, they pick on people who are vulnerable, right? It's probably only people that are at rock bottom looking for that rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in this case it was pretty much like he was manipulating women who wanted to be models,
Ah, yeah.
and then
Okay.
yeah, something like right more in depth. But
You sure?
yeah,
You sure that
people
wasn't
are
that
we're
journey's thing?
programmed. We're programmed to look for some being of higher power.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much inside of us,
Yeah.
but people exploit that, and
Mm-hmm.
that's disgusting.
Well, there's a special place waiting for them. A special judgment, if you would like to put it that way. They'll get
And
theirs.
I pray that they repent before then. But
Which is a hard thing to do, to pray for people like that, by the way.
yep, which ties into the Good Samaritan.
See, we always wind up bringing it back, man.
hmm Driven by the Holy Spirit, we just keep ending back in the same meaning of today's message.
Yeah, yeah, man. But what do you think? You got anything else you want to add?
I think we covered the Good Samaritan quite a bit today. I think out of all this conversation, there might be something that somebody could take home from it and, you know, apply to your life. And if you got anything else, that's all my brain can do today.
And with that, God bless everybody. Um, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, or just comment, and we will respond. I promise you that much. It may take a day or two because we're busy boys, but if you have anything you want to discuss or anything like that, drop us a comment. We can get in touch outside of that as well. We're all just learning, man, and that's it. We're just learning together.
Together. God bless.
God bless.